Ruslan.
When Nicki Minaj made the claim that it was God and her pastor that kept her on the path of making her music and pursuing her rap career. Your ears do not deceive you. This is a real story and a real interview she gave, about 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when her career was really starting to take off. And I was taken aback when I stumbled across this clip. And so I wanted to share it with you guys and let her share her piece and then kind of explore this idea of Christianity as a pursuit of Jesus and a relationship with Jesus, and churchianity, or being culturally Christian, if you will. Okay, so
I moved out of my mother's home at one time, wanting to be, on my own. And I remember thinking, what did I just do? Maybe this isn't gonna work. And I remember someone telling me that, this is not gonna work for you. You're living in a fantasy world and you need to go back to doing your 9 to 5.
So she's talking about pursuing music and how she quits the job and she goes after her dreams. She moves out of her mom's house and she's all in on doing music. And then it gets hard and she hits some roadblocks and people are telling her maybe pursuing music isn't for you. Now, you guys don't know my backstory. Quit my job in 2015 and I was an independent full-time artist providing for my family from 2015 to 2020, right around the time of the pandemic when everything shut down. That's when I pivoted to YouTube. So I relate to this wild fear, anxiety, pressure of stepping out and attempting to pursue your dreams. I understand where she's coming from, but listen to what she says next.
And I was looking at my refrigerator, empty, my cabinets empty, nothing there, no money in the bank, no money in my pocketbook. And
Now, it's never been that bad for your boy, okay? We was figuring it out.
For a little slight moment, I was like, they're right. I need to go back home to my mother. I need to go get a 9 to 5. I need to just be a regular person and forget this music thing.
What pulled you through?
I think just faith in God. And
Faith in God. And listen to the next bombshell she drops.
Always speak to people that can encourage me. Even now, I'll speak to my pastor and be like, can you just pray with me because I need some sort of guidance right now. And
so it was faith in God that kept her pursuing her music career. And she says even now, again, this is when she's already established, even now she says she speaks to her pastor. Get her some words of encouragement.
I think that's what's always got me through. My mother kept me in church when I was younger, so I never really strayed far from that in terms of.
Her mother kept her in church when she was younger. She never really strayed far from that. Let's listen to what she's saying specifically in terms of what?
I think that's what's always got me through. My mother kept me in church when I was younger, so I never really strayed far from that in terms of my belief and my faith and my drive. Mm-hmm. So
her belief, her faith, and her drive. Now, I'm sure some of us are considering the logical conclusions of what this belief, faith, and drive means and what the implications are, but let's let her finish her thought.
I always believe that any and everything is possible if you.
Any and everything is possible is what she always believed.
Believe and if you really do the work.
What was your...
So if you believe, at least she's not on some manifestation, your thoughts are things and you can speak things into existence. She said she believes, her belief, remember she's talking about God, but then her belief, the expression of her belief, that she believes anything is possible if you do the work.
5 at that time.
Let me pull it back.
Everything is possible if you really believe and if you really do the work.
A couple things that we need to consider here. She's professing that she grew up in church. I don't take that away from her. I'm sure she did grow up in church. And as we know, you can be someone that's not a Christian and glean value from the good things in church, as we just pointed out last week with Andrew shows going to church and all the things he experienced. So I don't think it takes anyone that's super duper in love with Jesus and his ways to acknowledge that church can be a good thing, that church can establish a desire for us to do things that are great, a desire for us to be confident because we are loved by a God who is willing to lay down his life for us. All of these things are not bad. Andrew Schultz talked about that. I'll pin that video at the end of this description. The idea that going to church can make young people feel filled up with the love of God, which often is a net positive. That's a good thing when you're navigating through life, even if you aren't following Jesus. Okay, now, the question that most of us would think about is, as she was pursuing the type of music she was making, not the genre of music, but the content in her music, how did she navigate some of the content that is very incongruent and incoherent in terms of the consistency of it with Scripture, and that with her faith in God. What God? Who did she place her faith in? What was she believing in? Was it that she believed that she could do anything because of the confidence instilled in her by Christianity, almost in a pragmatic sense, almost in a way where the upbringing and the faith wheeled her to do whatever she wanted to do without a moral compass? I don't know if Nicki believes that the music she makes is a net positive on society. I don't know if she would tell you that. Maybe she would. Maybe that's her position. But what faith in what God? Or is it just the faith that drove her to have faith in herself and confidence in herself? And second of all, what are the practical implications of people who grow up in this and they get a taste of the goodness of God? They get a taste of the confidence that it comes with in terms of being a follower of Jesus, or the experience and the stability of growing up in church, yet making music that's in complete contradiction with the values that we know Jesus prescribes in his teachings. And Jesus made it clear, if you love me, obey my commands. Right? That when we're saved, when we profess with our mouth and believe in our heart that Jesus is who he says he is, that he lived the life we couldn't live, that he died the death we should have died on the cross in our place for our sins, and he rose on the third day, that when we make those professions, we are born again, and not just in an abstract sense, but that something supernatural happens in our hearts, and we get new hearts and new desires to believe the things of God, to believe that God's ways for our lives are better than our ways, to believe that God's prescriptions of how we are to make art are better than our ideas and what we're going to personify. Specifically with her, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that a lot of the content in her music has been to glorify the things of the flesh, meaning the natural desires we have to rebel against God or to do our own thing and be our own God. That's kind of like a cliche in a lot of music, right? Do your own thing. I'm just doing my own thing, right? I don't think that Nicki is an outlier here. I actually think Nicki is the reflection of many people who grow up having a form of godliness but denying its true power. See, because I believe that if she was really aligned with Jesus in her day-to-day life, I believe, and not in an abstract sense where she just, you call on God as a genie of sorts, but that you're really doing your best to walk in God's ways. I believe that she could have made music that was clean, that was wholesome, that was uplifting, and that didn't promote sexual immorality and all the other themes that we've heard in her music and a lot of the female rappers' music this day, which is everyone from, Ice Spice to Sweetie to whoever you want to talk about. I think she could have potentially done both. Now, she may have not been as famous, she may have not been as rich, but I think there was a space for that. And so I'm curious how this is all going to come around, because this is not to take anything away from Nicki's ability. I think Nicki Minaj has a ton of talent and a ton of ability, but she would tell you in her own journey that at one time she went by Nicki Minaj and that she was trying to do more positive stuff, apparently, but it was a need to adjust and to change things to make it a bit more explicit, hence the name of Minaj changed from Mirage. It's an interesting place, and especially interesting, fascinating place for women in culture and media to be in, and how much of they have to feel, they have to show their sexuality and all these things to appeal to a broader audience. It does suck, and it's not necessarily fair, but I do believe that times are changing, and I do believe that God is doing something different with this generation. I do believe that the tools and access that we have to make YouTube videos like this, or jump on Instagram or YouTube Shorts or TikTok Reels or whatever, and make stuff that can reach people with our music and our art, is shifting the landscape of what can be possible. And so you're seeing a lot of artists like Caleb Gordon and John Keith and Wande who are making wholesome music that is Christian and does align with their worldview. And then you have folks that are what I would call the Christian secular artists, like my buddy Nick D, who are making great, clean music that's pop, that's mainstream and wide appealing, but that is safe and wholesome and doesn't have a bunch of profanity and a bunch of vulgarity in it. And so I think this is an extremely exciting time for us. us. And I'm curious where all this goes. In terms of Nicki, I think she's a mirror to much of society in the West and specifically in America, where there's this cultural Christianity. You kind of grew up going to church, but if you ask someone to articulate what is the gospel, how are you saved, what is the overall point of Jesus coming to earth, they wouldn't be able to say it. And so those are my thoughts on this whole thing. If you guys want to see the video of Andrew Schultz just recently being very bold in assessing the good things of Christianity, I'll have that pinned up over there. You can check that out. If you want to go the extra mile, partner with us for as little as $5 a month for our online community, we'll have that pinned up over here. You get access to our daily after party streams, access to our podcast before they go public, and access to a private Discord server and discount code. We'll have that pinned up over here. I'll see you guys over there. All right. Peace.